Hey guys, Sarah here. I'm back today with a very different topic. Before I say anything more, if you are a minor, this video is not for you at all, and don't try anything that I'm mentioning here. Also, please, wherever you are in the world, please be aware of the laws and please don't do anything illegal or break the law, and be aware of what is legal in your country or state. Well, you saw the title and you clicked on it. Maybe you ask yourself what psychedelics have to do with mindset and manifestation and the things that I usually talk about on the channel. Psychedelics break down the wall to the subconscious mind, and because of that, you can heal yourself and become aware of thought patterns and blockages that your conscious mind is unaware of. So some people do them recreationally, but they can definitely be used as a tool. I recently went on a retreat where, of course, because it was a retreat, my intention was to heal and to break through some blockages in my mind. It wasn't my first time doing psychedelics, but it was my first time trying DMT, and it was my first time in this kind of setting, and also my first time taking these types of substances back to back, because I'd never done it before like this. And just so you have an idea of my background with this, like I said, I had never done DMT before. I had done mushrooms maybe a total of 8 times, but the first time when I was 15, so it was a long time ago. So I did it several times then, and then I stopped until about 3 years ago. Since then, I've done it a few times, and I had done LSD once, like 2.5 years ago. So that was my level of experience going into this retreat, just so you know. So I'm only sharing my personal experience. I'm not mentioning any names or anything. This is just about how I felt and what we did. So basically, it was 2 days back-to-back of psychedelics, and on the first day, we started off with a microdose of shrooms and LSD. It was very pleasant, but of course nothing groundbreaking happened because it was a microdose. So we did this during the day, and then it wore off after a few hours. And then at night, we had a DMT ceremony. And in the past, I had been very curious, but also scared of trying DMT. And then when the day came, I actually wasn't scared anymore. Well, once we actually started, and I saw people inhaling, because you smoke it, and then going into this trance, I was freaked out. And I mean, freaked out because you just see people basically like smoke and go out instantly, like going into this trance and they're out. But you see they're not dead because they're breathing. But anyways, I was freaked out. Then eventually it was my turn, and I was super nervous. And while I'm laying there inhaling, and then this stuff kicks in. And the closest feeling that I can compare it to is fainting. And it did not feel like falling asleep, but just like you're losing consciousness. And my head hurt for a few seconds, but then it stopped. And they were playing relaxing music in the background. I was still hearing that music, but my body felt totally weightless, like I'm flying or floating. And I didn't really see anything, but I just thought that this is what dying must feel like. And I also felt a very loving energy, very like warm and protective, and it wasn't scary. And eventually I got out of this, and that feeling was kind of like coming back out of a dream, waking up out of a dream. And because I didn't have any spectacular hallucinations, I was told that I didn't go deep enough. And that day I had a mild cough, and because you have to inhale and hold in the smoke, I had trouble holding it long enough without coughing. So that made it a bit more difficult. But then it's the next round. So now I tried again, a second time, and I was able to hold down the smoke a bit longer this time, but it made me sick and I started choking. I was getting nauseous. I thought I had to throw up, but then this trance kicks in. So I'm kind of out, and then after a few seconds, I opened my eyes and I'm like over this bucket, but nothing came out. So I was sitting up. So I was like, okay, nothing's coming out. So let me lay down and close my eyes. And this time the experience definitely was much stronger than the first time. So again, I had this weightless feeling of like I'm flying, but it felt like a dream state where I had all types of images come to me. But I have to say one thing, I saw the images more in my mind versus really inside my eyelids, if that makes sense. I don't know if you know what I mean, but it's like the same way when you're about to fall asleep and you start dreaming, but you're not fully asleep yet, but you have all these images floating through your mind. And that's how it was for me. And the first thing I remember, I thought that I was flying through an ancient, beautiful garden with an ancient tribal folk. and there were hills, but I was just like the observer flying above. It did not feel like I was really in the garden myself. I also had this vision where I saw myself chained up in a place that looked exactly like hell, but that was a situation in my life, a negative one, so that was more symbolic. And I also wasn't scared, but it looked like this negative place with like the colors of hell and the fires and everything, and I'm chained up. So of course it was much more symbolic. Again, I didn't feel scared, and this image kept disappearing and coming back several times during the journey, so that was interesting. Then I also had spirits come to me and talk to me under a night sky, and yeah, eventually I got out of it. I got another little hit because the shaman took the smoke from the balloon and blew it in my mouth. But it's funny, like way back in the day when I used to be a weed smoker, we used to do this and call it copy. It's like someone takes the smoke from the joint, holds it in their own mouth, and then blows it in the other person's mouth, and we used to call that copy in the early 2000s in Germany. That was a thing. But that was kind of the same technique because he inhaled it from the balloon, and this is how he gave me kind of a third hit. But I wasn't even fully out of the second trip yet at this point. So I went back into this trance, and then at this point, I can't say what happened, but when I had actually trouble coming out of it, it felt like when you're drunk and you're dreaming and waking up and falling back asleep, because I was trying to sit up and open my eyes, but I wasn't really there, not really in the trance anymore either. So I was in this in-between state for quite a while, and yeah, but eventually I got out of it completely. And what I took away from this is that I could have definitely gone deeper, or I can, but it was still a very enlightening experience, and it took away my fear of death, really. Things that you're just coping with in your life, they're definitely deep in your subconscious mind, and they come back as like haunting images, you know? And yeah, it basically really took away my fear of dying, because that's what I really always imagined it to be like, and it wasn't scary. So that was my DMT experience. I'm definitely doing it again. So just when I thought that it couldn't get any crazier than that day, it still did. We did the DMT at night, and then we went to sleep, and then the next morning we took LSD. And as you know, if you've done it, or maybe you don't because you haven't done it, LSD is like a 12-hour plus experience, unlike the DMT, and that is just minutes. When you're on your acid journey, you are tripping all day. And because I had done it before, I wasn't nervous, I was just excited. But I mean, 2 years ago, I had taken the blotted paper, and this time it was liquid and it was pretty pure, I believe. And I took only 1 drop, so I don't know how many micrograms that is. Just minutes after, it hit me really hard, and I got super motion sick, kind of like when you're drunk and you're in the back of a taxi. That's how I felt. And I got some acupuncture done, and that helped for a little bit, but still after a while I couldn't take it anymore, and I had to lay down in a different room. I was still super nauseous, but again, like the night before, I couldn't throw up, and I started having very mysterious pains, and until today I don't have any physical explanation for what was happening. And I had stabbing pains and weird abdominal pains, but not in my tummy. It was literally in my uterus that was hurting, and it felt like I was getting stabbed. And I know that sounds nuts, and it was totally insane to me too, but there was no physical explanation or reason for this. But mentally I was fine, and at this point the pain and the nausea were making me so weak that I had to lay down on a bed, and I was between laying on a bed and sitting on the bathroom floor for hours. So while I was dealing with these pains, I had different things running through my mind, and the only explanations that I have as of now are like 3 different things. Of course, the first thing is I had some traumatic experiences come up, like as pictures or voices, but it's too private for here. But then also another thing is I'm naturally already an empath, so I feel other people's pain. So now that I was in this detached state from myself with this ego death, I felt like I'm absorbing everyone else's pain, and it was just all going to that area of my body. Because, you know, the whole weekend a lot of people were doing healing work and were super emotional and, you know, crying, and like even the day before. So I felt like maybe I'm absorbing whatever is going on with like all the other people that were there, and it turned into pain. So maybe that played into it as well. And then the third thing that was on my mind was that all the generations of women, especially back in the day, and all the stuff that they had to take from men, and just in general, just like the weight on women. And I was thinking of kind of a generational pain, if that makes sense. And in the end of the day, I don't know what was causing it. Maybe it was one of those things, maybe it was all those things. But I was really lucky because I had awesome people look after me, bring me water, Advil, food. And then eventually these mysterious pains stopped, thank God. And while I was laying down there or sitting down on the floor, I had the whole day, like I had these matrix-like hallucinations, and I kept seeing holograms and codes everywhere. And you know, I saw people with many eyes, like whoever was coming up to me, I saw them with 3 eyes, 4 eyes, 6 eyes, but it wasn't scary to me. It was more funny than anything. And just the main theme of this journey for me was the Matrix. And I thought about it all day. Like, how do you know what's real? What does it mean? What does reality mean?
How would you know the difference between the dream world and the real world?
I was also thinking of the Kabbalistic tree of life. If you don't know what that is, it's kind of a map of the universe that shows the different levels of consciousness, and it shows them as like spheres and paths, you know. So it is kind of a matrix-like worldview, I want to say. So that was running through my mind the entire day. And it's funny because later on, when I felt better, I started drawing. I was also trying to draw kind of the tree of life, because that was just the theme that was in my head the whole day. I couldn't really tell what's real or not. At some point I was saying to someone like, oh my God, I'm hearing a robotic voice in my head. And they told me, no, that's music that they're playing, because they're playing this like spiritual rap song where there's a robotic voice talking about divine love and abundance. And I'm like, okay, I've gone completely insane at this point, until someone explained to me, no, that's the music. Maybe I'll link it below, but I don't want to play it right now because I don't want to get the copyright claim, you know? Yeah, anyways, I had the full-blown ego death, and I couldn't remember my life or my identity at all. I knew my first name was Sarah. I didn't know my first name. I knew I was in the desert somewhere on a retreat, and I knew the names of the people that were around me, but that's about it. Like, I didn't know which state I'm in. I didn't know where I live. I didn't know where I'm from, what I do. And you know, the people around me, they kept talking about, yeah, where's my phone? And I was like, oh, a phone? I think I have a phone too. It's like the silver thing, but I had literally no idea anymore. Like, what does a phone do or anything? So for the first like 5 hours, I didn't even have my phone, because I couldn't even understand what you do with it, to be honest, in this state. So now, compared to my first acid trip, where I also had a ego death, but not to this level, because you know, I had my phone during my first acid trip, and I was going through messages. I was still able to read, and like I was able to read the names. I had a vague memory of who these people were, like, oh, like this is a friend of mine, like kinda, even though it was pretty wiped out. But like this time, like I said, I only knew my first name was Sarah, and like I knew nothing else. I knew that I was from a different country, but even the concept of like countries and everything, like it was all gone. I had no idea. And like I said, for the first 4 or 5 hours, I didn't even understand what a phone is, to be honest. But yeah, eventually, after that pain had stopped and I was finally able to throw up, I started feeling really good. And this is when I started drawing my weird tree of life interpretation. I was just laughing and running around with my markers and showing everyone what I was drawing. Because, you know, they say that LSD makes your inner child come out. And I experienced it that way this time too, because I couldn't stop laughing and showing everyone what I was drawing and running around with my markers just like a little child. And I just felt really good. The typical psychedelic feeling of, you know, we're all one. I'm one with God, one with the universe. There's just this divine love, you know. And I'm just so happy to be alive, and you're just incredibly present. And that's why, you know, forget all these details of like your earthly regular life. Like, it's all gone, it's all removed from you. So yeah, that was basically that day. Like I said, I had really underestimated this particular LSD. It blew me away. And yeah, I just felt like that weekend my brain got a heart reset, you know. And especially on acid, it's really interesting that I noticed a lot of thought patterns and negative stories and affirmations that I was telling myself until that day, but I was not aware that I'm telling myself these stories. And especially after like the peak was over, I had like these random phrases pop up in my mind and like stories, and I was like, wait a minute, like I'm always telling myself that. And then like once I came down, it turned into this awareness of, oh wow, like this was so deeply buried in my subconscious mind, and my conscious mind would have never noticed that I'm even telling myself some of these negative stories and that I have some of these negative thought patterns. They really only came out once I was completely detached from who I am and everything, you know. This is how I notice them now. So that was really mind-blowing. And again, it shows to me the power of breaking down the wall to your subconscious mind, what that can do. Because like all the stuff that is buried underneath there, I mean, it's wild. It's like you have no idea. And yeah, once you just start coming back and you remember all the stuff that you were thinking about, then it's this wow feeling. Wow, I had no idea what was actually going on there, you know? So needless to say, it was very helpful, very beneficial to me, and I definitely healed a lot of stuff. I definitely was able to break through a lot of blockages that way, because like I said, even though when I'm doing my own mindset work, some stuff I don't even see because my conscious mind is unaware of it. It's too deeply buried in my subconscious, and that's why this was very beneficial. I'm very curious to know what your experiences with psychedelics are, and yeah, comment below if you have any. I'm really curious to know, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, don't do anything illegal, and always make sure you're aware of your mental health, and don't do anything like when you have problems with your mental health. But I hope this was interesting and entertaining to you, and I'll see you in the next video.